Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. Tommy Tallarico, the chosen one, is back. You heard that you missed him. The prodigal son has returned. Oh, yes. Let me tell you, he's the content king when it comes to Intellivision Amico or anything Amico related. And one John Alvarado here is going to set the table for us as far as his redemption arc. Like I told you guys before, these Amico Forevers, you can't review them all at once. There's so many tender slices of beef in this that you just can go into cuts and just go into deep cuts, right? And today we're going to examine the redemption arc that's being laid out here by one John Alvarado after the great one, after the chosen one was pushed out of the company. And make no mistakes, it doesn't matter what this man says, this man was pushed out. And let me give you the evidence. After Tommy left, what happened? Right? Did anybody defend Tommy? Did anybody defend Tommy against the courts? No. They let him get sued. They let him get sued over furniture because he had co-signed for it. He was the guarantor. And, they didn't let him avoid the public embarrassment of that because, of course, as soon as that became public, everybody talked about it. Right? And he had to defend himself. He had to say, hey, these guys over here owe you the money. Yeah, I guaranteed it, but you need to go after them first because they have the money. Hello, $17 million, right? So that happened to him, and just think about it logically. You don't have coworkers that you throw under the bus like that you are cool with. No, that breakup was not a peaceful transfer of power at all. It was not, right? Because you had two different camps. And for those of you who haven't been around, let me give you some of my analysis. During this time where all this is happening, I'm in Silicon Valley, and I'm talking to people, right? These opinions that I'm going to give you are based on not only my personal experience in business and manufacturing, but also from talking to a AAA programmer and a patent lawyer, both of which work for a company that you guys would think, well, I can't tell you the name of the company, okay, but they are famous for a lot of microtransactions, right? You think microtransaction kings, this is exactly who you're talking about. So I'm talking about heavy hitters, right? These are, people in the industry, right? With many years of video game experience. And their conclusion was that they definitely were going to manufacture this console, given the deposit of $1 million, right? The business plan was completely screwed, right? And that is the thing that I see, okay? It is my evaluation, my own personal opinion, that these people do not have the chops of what they're doing. One Tommy Tallarico, even though he's a talented promoter, right? He's a great media guy, he lacks the business acumen to develop a product like this because he can't vet himself, the people that surround him. Right? He thinks people are good based on what they've done before, but he doesn't know what the extent of their experiences are. He's not a video game programmer, right? So to QC, to do any of this stuff, he can just sit around and go, oh man, it didn't work out. Juanito over here is in a great position because he's the only one that knows. Right? Have you ever been in a job where there's only one guy that knows what's going on and you have to work at his pace because it's whatever he wants, whenever he wants? And if he says it's going to take 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks, and you ask somebody else and they'll say, no, that takes about 2 days. But that's the only guy that you have, right? You have to go with him. And his work has been quite underwhelming, I would say. That's probably a word I can use on YouTube without YouTube getting mad, right? So, but from every industry expert that I talked to, right, the console was a go. They just didn't have the technical experience, the business experience to get it done. Right? When they lost $1 million because of that difficulty, right? And I can tell you this just is from my experience. If the board would have hired me to do an audit and tell me, hey, what's going on? Can these guys cut the mustard? And if I go in there and I look at this company and go, wait a minute, you gave $1 million deposit for production without having viable units. I mean, that's a rookie mistake. You know, when you set up production, guys, it's because you have units that are already running. Right? Everything's working. You have prototypes, yeah, fine, but they're already done. They're working. They're QC tested. They're running. That didn't happen in this case. We know the controllers weren't working, right? The engineering on the console was done according to the engineer, and I tend to believe the engineer because they work to print and they work to process. What I don't believe is that the software was completely done, because I don't see anywhere where you would have had that kind of experience. Remember, these guys were trying to hire people at the very last minute. You can't do that in this type of project, right? And remember, I told you about decision trees and all that stuff. So if I look and I do an assessment and I go, wait a minute, your company is worth this much if we sell it off right now, and this is how much you've lost so far. This is how much we can save by stopping the project right now, and this is how much you're going to lose, because we basically have to start from scratch again, because you're about to lose, all these certifications that were had before. Obviously, you have problems with manufacturing, so you have to redo this again. You have to change the chips, this and that and the other. So you have to start from scratch. Do they work to these basic games? Yeah, but not for the other games that they were planning to. Right? But regardless, my assessment at that point would have said, no, you need to kill this project. You need to do something else. Either just make software or sell it off. Protect your assets. Because at that point, I'm going to be working for the owners of the company. I'm not going to be working for the customers, right? If I'm a customer, I don't want to hear that, because I've been told that these units are going to be produced and the software and this and that and the other. But just look at, just judge the scope of this man's work over here. It's been underwhelming. I can go to Kickstarter and show you video game after video game that looks better than anything that he's done so far, and that is being done by one person. So there is no excuse, right, for this project to be this underwhelming so many years in. So this is what Tommy's facing. Now this guy has to lay out the table, because now Tommy's back. Now that these guys in the background, the real owners, the guys with the most money, went and sold everything off and just basically took everything out of the company. And now that, you need to figure out who's going to do this, right? Because these are two things that are being reported. One of them is the Franchise Tax Board in California, and I told you, they don't not mess around. They have them suspended, right, if these reports are to be believed. Right? That means you can't sell anything, you can't conduct business, at least not under this entity, Amico Holdings, LLC, and all these other holdings here. Amico Holdings, Intellivision Games Asset, that's suspended. Intellivision Games, suspended. Intellivision Media, suspended. Intellivision Entertainment, LLC, suspended. I mean, if this is true, that's trouble. And this is as of 5/1/2025. And then you have this tax bill over here for $440,000. Right? That's what you're walking into. Right? So a new LLC has been formed, right? And I believe, right, it's just my belief, my business opinion, that if you're forming LLCs to publish on other systems, it's because you want to segregate these properties. Right? You want to walk away from this. If you are an investor, this is not good news for you. I mean, it hasn't been good news for years, guys. And the thing about the investors, let me tell you this. I can't be more upset than the investors. Right? If you look at all these YouTube videos, I think the only investor that's been public out there and saying anything is Smash JT. Other than that, nobody says anything. Right? So YouTubers can, farm that for content. Right? But it's just crazy. You can't be more mad than the person that's being affected by the event. Right? It's sort of like that battered person syndrome, where they're getting smacked and they're like, but I love him. And that's the thing with Tommy. A lot of these people would do it again. So, I'm not going to sit here and fight City Hall. If that's the way they feel, that's the way they feel, whatever. It's your money. Do whatever you want with it. I don't care. So that really has no bearing on this new company. They know this, right? They know this because a lot of people feel the same way as these gentlemen on screen. So they can continue with a new venture, of course. Now, would I do it the way that I see they're doing it? Absolutely not.
And after that, they kicked him up into the pro level. Now he's now in the pro level because they said, you reached kind of the top of that division. And so he's continued to play in tournaments and has won trophies in the pro level. He won a trophy in Las Vegas recently.
So he came back with backgammon. Awesome. Let me tell you something about backgammon. It's not a poor people's game. It's a target-rich environment if you're looking for investors.
At a tournament where he lost an early game and got into the consolation division and ended up winning there, so he got a trophy. So he's like one of the most trophy-winning guys for the number of tournaments that he's actually been in. It's pretty incredible. But that just goes to show his level of focus and commitment when he commits to something. And his commitment to the company was so huge. He's a workaholic, and he would just be working all the time to try to figure out how we could succeed, how we could solve the issues we're having.
Now, this is true, right? Everything from what I've heard, he's a pretty personable individual, and he is a workaholic, right? The problem is you can work really hard at something you don't know, right? I could work really hard on my transmission, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So it's not getting fixed, right? No matter how many YouTube videos I watch, it's not going to give me the right tools to get the job done, right? And from what I see from their business acumen, these guys do not have the tools to get the job done as far as manufacturing a console. Manufacturing software is different. That would be more like the music industry, right? You get it done when you get it done, whatever. But, as far as the problem that I see with Tommy is he didn't have the business experience. He doesn't have the project management experience. He doesn't have the business, analysis experience. You've been in the industry for a long time, right? But there's a saying in Spanish that we have, and it's not the same going to the bullfights and watching the bullfight that it is actually fighting the bulls. They're two different experiences, right? One of them is going to make your knees buckle. And, they don't have the business acumen in order to do what they set out to do, right? There might have been people in the background, but they weren't actually doing the nuts and bolts work that need to be done. I can tell you this from what I can see from Tommy's business experience, right? He doesn't have the skills in order to evaluate, for example, engineers and programmers to see that their skill set measures up to what needs to be done for this company. Whenever he talked about those people, he would say, oh, they worked on, this or that or the other. Okay, but what did they do? Right? I could say, hey, I worked on this game and all I did was put the CDs in the sleeve. Right? That doesn't make me an expert in anything. You have to be able to gauge and evaluate your talent and pay them accordingly. John Alvarado's getting paid top dollar to make great games, and great games they are not. Go to Kickstarter. Go through pages and pages of games that look a lot better than these, being produced a lot faster. Right? So his work, again, has been underwhelming. Let's continue.
That, of course, put a strain on his marriage, and that's a reason why they split up. But they're back together now. Yeah. They're happily married.
Okay, so here's the redemption arc. He worked so hard, such a workaholic, did it for the console so much that he was even willing to sacrifice his marriage. Now, this is something that they had to talk about before, guys. I don't see anybody talking about anybody else's marriage without asking their permission. Right? So for me, this is something they talked about. They said it's okay to talk about this. As a matter of fact, I want you to lay it out like this because this is going to be part of the redemption arc, which is fine. I mean, no matter what, the guy has a right to work in whatever he wants, right? But now if you put it this way, you feel even more guilty if you're one of these Tommy fans to say, hey, and he's like, man, I tried so hard, I almost risked my marriage, right? So now if you start, this is how hard I work. Yeah, but you don't know what you're doing, but whatever, I mean, if you go at him from that side and the guy's willing to give up his marriage, now you're the a-hole because, he's willing to go that far for you and you're not grateful that he even tried, right? That's the narrative.
And he's doing so much better now. He's very involved in the company. After he started doing better, he started getting involved again. And he's very involved now, and I'm happy to have him back. I really missed him while he was gone.
That's good.
But
all right, guys. So there's the redemption arc. In a future video, I'm going to touch on this business plan that they have, right? Which, for me, I wouldn't go this way. right? The definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I think John Alvarado should not be the head lead anything, right? Based on results. He could be the greatest guy in the world, pero ay, Juanito, la cagaste. I mean, these games are not up to par. Not all the games are finished. I mean, we're what, 5 years in? And we got 9 games? We don't have all the games, all the physical games? Do we have all the packing games? No. So it's a disaster, right? It's a colossal failure. We had the money to do this a long time ago. It didn't get done. And now we're going to move forward, and people are supposed to pay for these games again in order to play them. I just think in general, Tommy needs a better look, but that'll be a separate video. But at least you know now what the redemption arc is going to be. Tommy went through turmoil. He was working too hard. He was willing to give up his marriage. He went through getting kicked out of the company, which he did, and I truly believe that he did, guys. This right here, for whatever you want to blame Tommy, this right here, you can't put it on his shoulders. This big-ass bill, I don't know how they're going to put it on his shoulders. This failure right here with California, if these are to be true, those are not on him. He didn't have the purposes then. Now that the company has nothing, right? Now that the company has been stripped bare, now he's back, right? Because there's nothing left. These guys raided it. They took everything. They took away the console, and that's the reason he was removed. Make no bones about it. He was willing to spend every single dollar that these guys had on making consoles, even if they didn't work properly. And the guys with the money, the guys with the $330 million purses, they said, we're going to get our money back first. We're going to pay ourselves first. And that's what happened to the Intellivision Amico. That's why it's dead. And if something ever comes out, it's not going to be the Intellivision Amico, let me tell you, because by this time, a lot of the certifications have lapsed. So, I don't know what they're going to make if they ever make anything. But guys, again, in the next video, we'll go down a business plan, maybe something else. There's so much in this Amico Forever that we could touch from a business perspective. But for right now, this is it. Thank you for sitting with me, catching up with the Intellivision Amico, the story that never ends. It never ends. There's so much content, and the content king is back. Am I mad at Tommy? I didn't lose any money. If it wasn't for Tommy, I wouldn't even have a channel probably, right? So for me, he's the content king. All right, humans, I will catch you on the next one. Take care.